You know, I think the easiest way to just start it. If we hit that button. There we go, we brought it up. Alright, welcome back. We're going to do a quick one. This is a revisit of After Hours 141. I believe it was After Hours. Let's get to it. Okay. We'd taken a look at this computer. If you remember before, the wires were just hanging everywhere. We had two hard drives in the actual computer. 160 gig, a 320 gigabyte drive. One was a Windows 7, one was installed with Windows 10. Neither of which were set up for the owner's account. This is older hardware. It's a triple-core AMD processor. It has 6 gigs of RAM, so it's going to have, two 2-gig sticks and two 1-gig sticks. I don't know if it's set up to run a dual channel or probably single channel with that amount of RAM. There's a few other things, but before we continue, I did clean up the wires, kind of have them where I want them. We're going to put an SSD in this, just to extend the life of this computer a little bit. And then, also, I want to take another glaring look at another glaring issue, because it doesn't reliably boot with this graphics card, and I think I had mentioned that in the one live stream. And aside from pulling the graphics card out to take a look at it, let's focus here. You can see we've got some pop capacitors. Let's try and zoom in. You can see those capacitors that are domed up and leaking right there. If it'll focus on them instead of the fan, that would be great. You can see that they are leaking. So this card works, but it doesn't reliably work. Okay, so what I did was I went ahead and got the same value capacitors. This will be a separate experiment. Or not experiment. Yeah, it is an experiment when you start replacing capacitors, because you replace something that is kind of working or not working, and it can backfeed sometimes further in the circuit and cause other stuff to not work. So that's going to be a separate repair. Those capacitors cost a few cents and some time. So, but before we do that, we have an audio wire issue. This is for our front panel. It doesn't go the whole way across without, normally it should go over and then up, but this just wasn't fitted with the proper length for this case. So we're going to have to route it up around the chipset and the north bridge and the south bridge, route it between and plug it in. Before we even continue anything, there's a few things I want to check. Going with what else has happened on this system, it would not, like you can see, if we take a look, we're missing a screw here, the screw and the standoffs here. The standoffs are in the bottom ones. We have a screw there. This screw here is not all the way down, nor will it go all the way down. We have this one that's there and well tightened down, and this one, which is also kind of tight, but we're going to check. When you have mix-match screws like that and just screws missing, it usually indicates one thing, that they don't have the proper screws that fit in the standoffs that are there. We're also missing a standoff here. So we're going to pull the board out, replace all the standoffs with a set of standoffs and screws that go together, and move on from there. So let's disconnect a few things that we can. Basically all I did was route wires, took the hard drive out of the hard drive cooler that's here, so we're not putting power to fans that we're literally doing not much. And tidied up the wires, tucked away all the ones that were not going to be used. Be able to unplug our fan, our power supply, and then we can attempt to pull this board out. So yeah, this is just a revisit of last week's stream. Not only, aside from the pop capacitors, ones that are popped and leaking, and we have a few that are domed up, this is supposed to be like a silent or passively cold with air flowing through the system across the heatsink. graphics card. It has a fan, just like with it, some kind of type of adhesive stuck to it. There is a name under this. I'm pretty sure it's an Asus card, so it would have to say that under that fan. You can see the S sticking out on the one side, but you can't see anything because it's covered there. So I tried to do the placement on it, but I don't know if it actually cools it. We're going to leave that, possibly tear the fan out and clean it. But that, like I said, that's a different repair. Let's get these screws out that won't go in, and we may even, by the mix and match screws and missing standoffs, we may have to pull it out like a standoff stuck on a screw and actually remove that from the motherboard as well. So let's see what we can do with it. Alright, that one came out free and clear. Let's see what we got here. Alright, another one came out. And I'm not sure, but the board looks a little warped. Just standing here where I'm at in my position looking at it, looks like the board has a warp to it. If that is the case, that tells me there is different lengths of standoffs used. Alright, you see the whole board's moving. So what we got there is a standoff stuck. The screw stuck in the standoff, not the proper screw for it. So let's go ahead and pull this out and see. Yeah, okay, right there. Let's set this board down. We're going to need, right there you can see that we have the standoff and screw stuck together. That's why the screw would never tighten. You could probably force it and think you're getting it tight, but what you're really doing is stripping out the hole where the standoff screws in. So let's lean this here for a moment. Get our nut driver for the standoffs, if it'll reach down over it, and then we can get our Phillips and take these apart. The only other way to do it would be with pliers, depending how tight it is stuck together. Not very, but there you go. Okay, so let's keep track of these. We'll set this board to the side. And we will keep track of these as we pull them out. We're going to go through and pull out all the standoffs. It looks like somebody had done it, but we'll redo it. We know one's going to go there, 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 there. And I think that's it. Is there a goofy misplaced screw in the corner by the rim? No. There is no hole. It's just an empty hole. It's not a tie down one. So we have our spots marked where to put our other standoffs, but let's check and see if we have some different length standoffs involved here. The board looked like it had a warp to it, so possibly. We'll just set those there and throw them all right there, so there's no tricks involved. We're not in the magic business. Okay, so we had at least one, if not two, just taking a quick look at them. So we had one different length standoff holding the very middle of the board up, and that's why it looked like it had a warp to it, because it was held high in the center, and then it was bent down each way. And you can see there that it's definitely longer, and they are mixed and matched. That's why screws didn't go into most of them. Most of them are fine thread, not coarse thread like motherboard screws are. We're gonna not even worry about those and just throw them in the bin. Let me get a pack of screws with standoffs. Alright, here, sorted out. We're gonna go ahead, these match. We'll go ahead and install these in all the locations, as long as they thread into the actual where the board goes in, or where standoffs screw in to hold the board, and they do, so we're good to go there. To keep them in there tighter, I guess I should say, we're gonna use some thread locker. Blue. And of course, I'd given thoughts to routing the front panel audio cable under the motherboard. However, I don't think there's room. I mean, there's room, but I don't think there's room between the motherboard and this back I/O panel. Or expansion. Where all the expansion plates are. We're never going to fit that big fat wire in there. So, alright, here's where there was a missing standoff. Would the computer have functioned without all the screws in? Yes. Could it have rattled loose? Probably. Maybe. Possibly. I don't want to say yes or no. That it definitely would or wouldn't. Either way. It's kind of unknown. But just to have it a little more proper, we're going to go ahead and get all these put in. If we don't drop this one. Torque those down a little, and then what, 2 more? Well, I hope that's the right one. I think it is. It should be. Oh, okay, we're going to the top one. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Go back. Just give a little finger twist. I don't need to get the torque wrench out on these. We just need to make sure they are torqued down. And when that thread lock dries, or thread locker dries, they'll be held firmly enough in place that you shouldn't be able to pull them out with just, unless you're putting your motherboard screws in with a drill. Okay, let's get some wires out of the way. We need our front panel audio wire out of the way, our switches, and our front side USB. SATA, we can deal with that, and the fan. What do we do? We can take a moment. We'll do it with it back in the case. We're going to check our thermal paste. If this was just a system that quite possibly was thrown together, my suspicions from past experiences are saying that it's probably none to uneven to possibly recycled thermal paste. We're going to change that if that's the case. go to a way more magnetic screwdriver to hopefully not drop all these. We have one in. Let's put a couple more of these in. And these screws are basically a set. I can't guarantee they're 100% identical, but they will at least all thread into those standoffs. Alright, with that, I'm going to go ahead and switch back to the bigger screwdriver and give all these a little twist to tighten them down. The graphics card didn't state it's in. Like I said, it boots at least 50% of the time, but that's not good enough for somebody that's going to be using a computer. And I think the reported use was for cyber school or the homeschool coming up. So get our front panel USB plugged in, and then we also need to do our wires. Power LED and hard drive LED. There. Reset switch. Power switch. And a speaker. Optical drive. SSD. These now function like, at least with this SSD bracket, it will slide forward, lock the pin in, and then we can lock it downward to prevent it moving back and letting anything loose in there. So that's functioning. Wires tucked away. 12-volt rail. Let's get our system fan here. Get it plugged in. Main power supply. And everything looks good there. Let's undo this fan. Oh, yeah. Let's do our audio. So I think the move is going to be to go under our switch wires, above our SATA, and we're going to pass right over the north bridge and the south bridge. In that area, run it through, and do we have enough length to hit that front panel audio header? Let's put it on first, then we'll try routing the wire. Alright, it's on. Over or under? Under. And then over top of that. Looks good. Alright. Fan's undone. Let's undo this and check our thermal paste. And while we have this apart, we can quite possibly pull our fan out. And okay. Yeah, alright. Let's look at that there. Very uneven. So recycled thermal paste. It has been lifted. You can see the spotting on that. And if that's not enough, let's take a look. We need a brush. And get some of that dust out of the system. might have hit the edges of the processor there, but we didn't wipe up all the compound, so take a look at that quick. You can see where some was stuck and the rest missing. I'm looking at the glare. See, we're going to put that back in. This is a pin processor, being careful not to touch those. Oh wow, okay. And the processor has one entire pin folded over. So that, wow, look at that. We're going to be able to put that up and straighten it without breaking it or bending others. That's not cool. Oh boy. The chances are it's not connected, but it could be touching other pins. And it is indeed, it's bent over. I can't even really show you this. Possibly I can, let's try it. We have a pin, right? You can kind of see it right there. In that corner, bent inward that way, touching that other. What if we killed the bright glare? Yeah, you can see it there, definitely. No, it's harder to see. Let the camera focus. See that pin bent over? That's not good. Like I said, chances are it's not connected. There's a lot of not connected pins. We're at least going to get it folded up and out of the way of those other ones. Alright. If we can, without damaging other pins. It's one thing we don't want to mess about with is breaking a bunch of pins off of a CPU. Wow, that is really stuck there. If we cannot flex it too bad, we should be able to just stand it right up. See, the thing is, as close as those pins are set together, most tweezers and whatnot will not go between the pins. So to get that up, it's going to be quite the challenge. Let me think about this for a minute. We may have to go under the microscope so we're not making big movements. We can make small movements. You're kidding me. Wow. I wish I had the camera for the microscope. So we have a complete pin ripped off and one folded over on this processor. Look right there in the socket. What is this thing? I'm going to take it that they're both not connected. As a computer definitely would boot up and run. What are we looking at? A Phenom X3. I wonder if we can possibly replace this with a Phenom quad core that has all the pins in place. I gotta make sure it's comparable generation. I'm gonna we're gonna look this thing up first. So this, how do we look up AMD? HD 8450. Phenom X3 8450. Okay, $24, $17.99, $384.50. What socket? Well, what is it? Tell me about it. Socket AM2 Plus triple core. Let's see if we have a quad with all the pins. Give me one more moment here. I'm going to take a look. Alright, so we need an AM2 Plus CPU. We might be stuck using this one with the busted pin and the ripped off pin. Hopefully not. Alright, we have a proper pinout. We have a Phenom, that X3, and we have a Phenom 2. We're going to compare the specs of the two. And hopefully this is something better. So let's hop over and take a look. So what we had with the broken pin is an HD 8450. Phenom X3 8450. Tell me about it. Triple core, 2.10 gigahertz, 2 megs L3 cache. And now we are looking at HD X820. Okay, so let's pull this to the side so we can take a look. So we have triple core Phenom at 2.10 gigahertz, 2 megs cache. This one doesn't have any specs on it. 4 megs, but it's AM3. Is it going to work in an AM2 socket? It's pinned out. Well, who knows? Like I said, we may be stuck using this busted pin X3 chip. Hopefully not. Actually, this might not even slot in. It looks the same, but I bet you they moved a pin, did they? AMD, did you move a pin? No. That's right in one go. I do not like that little clicking them in. Okay. So we're not thermal pasting the heck out of this thing. We're going to just lock this on quick before we do any cleaning, anything to it with what it is, and see if this thing will post. So they went up in core count. And process speed L2 cache is not being added to the bill. We gave them a set bill ahead of time. If we can improve this thing, I will. Maybe they want their triple core one back. I don't know. I'll ask them. Let them know. They can make the choice between busted pins or all the pins there. Alright, real quick. What do we have? Fan, processor, RAM's in. Everything else is together. I didn't expect to go this deep into it. We need a monitor out and a working mouse and keyboard and power. We don't need internet. Just power to see if this thing is going to post. Mouse, keyboard, power. Let's make sure it will post. I'm going to say no. We got a beep. We lit up the KVM. But somehow I don't think it's going to work. Oh. Alright, let's try this. Let's try this. It probably won't work. I'll probably need that stupid VGA port. Where is it? Where is this nightmare of a thing? We're going with device default, people. Just hit a restart. We got Furry hanging off of the fan. And we are posting. I hit something. We're going to bring it up. Let's, how do we do this? Can we hop on over to the repair? And that does nothing. Alright. I think I like it. We don't need to go in and tweak it now, but let's at least make sure everything is being detected. The fans, one thing I noticed is the fans are not going absolutely crazy. Okay. Save and exit setup. And skip on back over to there. We're just going to literally shut down. We need thermal paste on that. I did not expect to lift that CPU out of its socket and find busted pins, or a completely broken off pin and one bent completely sideways. Like I said, if they want it back to that, because it did in fact work with different specs, I would gladly I'll put it back. Alright, we need to pop this little unit here apart, and without breaking pins. I hate pulling these ones apart, but we'll get it. Seems like as soon as you get one or two sides of this, it's ready to go. Alright, there's one. Let's go for number 2. And 3 and 4. Oh, give me a moment here. Alright, that was the boss calling. Sorry. Alright, so we got our CPU pulled apart, or heatsink pulled apart. I'm going to take, there's no real way to mark it, so I'm going to mark it. I'm going to mark, I know that my black latch goes to that side. Doesn't matter, probably not, but we're going to clean that out and clean that off. That's caked in there pretty good. And also our bracket. So let's get to work on that. So the way some of this dust is looking, it looks like something got spilt on the aluminum part of this heatsink. There's the side where the thermal paste goes. We'll clean alcohol that. And there's the top. A little bit of a difference. We're going to brush off this bracket and then clean the fan out as best we can without getting too crazy with it. Alright. Let's say one side's offset. Offset how much? I do not know. Alright, that's on. Let's give a quick brush to this. It's not perfect. I'm going to say that is worlds cleaner than it was. So let's take a look. And I got to pull that bracket back off. Stupid me. Did not put... Oh, what is it? The little thing that locks the processor down in. Why didn't nobody warn me? You guys should have warned me about this. Seriously. of my life I just fail repeatedly. Repeatedly I fail. Oh, before we put that in, let's brush it off. Got a little bit of corrosion on it. We got our black marks, so we know the latch goes to that side. We will throw that through and latch this guy back on. It's going to go down. So we want our CPU fan to go as such. How I do these is these tabs, you could probably force it straight on, but I like to put one corner on, spin it in, and then you can force the one side on, and then you're just left with two. Snap, snap, it's back together. If they're super ancient, then they might break, but I've only broken maybe one or two all the years of doing that way, so I'm not saying that's the only way or the best way. That's just the way that I have had success doing it. That's a pretty simple statement. Okay, it's not perfect. It is, however, something. Oh boy, we didn't clean that Phenom 2 off. Let's do that quick. Or I guess we did, but that's from when we did the post test. Okay. I'll do it. Funny enough, that phone call you heard ringing, this was your computer you just called about. Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there. Slowly but surely. I'm going to have this thing set up and doing its updates very quickly. We're going to clean off the processor real quick. That is a Phenom 2 instead of the Phenom. Said we gained 1 in the core count. And we, what do I want to say, gained in the L2 cache. I don't know where else we might have gained at, but all the pins are there. They're not bent over. We only had one bent, to be fair, and one broken off completely. Completely ripped right out, so could that have happened when I unlocked the socket? Certainly. Not the bent one, but the ripped off one. I suppose it could have. Did it? I don't know. It had a lot of dirt under it, like where the pin had been loose and dirt got under there, so I'm going to say it had been broken for a little while. Alright, now we just have to do the impressive task of finding the thermal compound, and it should be good. Good to go. Give me a minute to locate this stuff. It is slippery sometimes. There it is in front of the keyboard. Okay. Putting a fair amount on there for that big old AMD heat spreader. lock this guy on. I generally try to lock the back side in the middle one and hold this up and then set it down nice and square, and then attempt to get the front one to latch on. Once I do that, flip the little latch while trying to hold it centered, and it should squeeze that stuff out. Let's plug our fan in. We have our front panel audio. We'll do a quick check on the whole system. We have our 12-volt rail, our backside fan, power supply screwed in, hidden wires we're not using, SATA cables, SATA power, the SATA data, main power, front panel switches with the speaker, front panel USB, and I think I covered that. Graphics card, that's going to be later. It is a 7600 GS. I do have a 9400 GT, 9500 GT, an HD something or other, and a 9800 GT, all of which of varying quality. Varying quality to throw in. Like I said, we're not trying to scrape every nickel and dime and penny. They got one set bill. We're just trying to make a reliable computer out of what they had. And in good conscience, I did not want to send out the processor with a bent pin and a broken pin. So we do have some equally used hardware if there's an issue with the graphics card that we could sacrifice. Anyhow, I think that's that. We can attempt to post this system and install. I don't want to bore people with configuring the BIOS. Let's go HDMI for now. We have our mouse and keyboard. Internet. That should carry sound, but we'll plug this in just in case. Power. And the important part, the Windows 10 installer. All of our front side USB ports are on the underside of the computer here, so it's laying down, so we can't do it that way. We do it like this. Then we'll flip over to the repair screen in a moment. A little bit scared. All right, let's boot this thing up. See what we can figure out. All right, advanced clock calibration. I'm really not going to mess around with all this. It's going to be set to auto. 20 clock seems good. I'm not doing the military time thing now. Disabled none. Hold on all the keyboard. Okay, back out. Actually, let's go in there. Can we change that? Channel 2 master slave. Is there a way to make it from ID to something else? Internal. Ah. Our system fan. So it's doing a rev thing. I don't know if it's because it's unbalanced, having a tough time spinning it. Looks like an old LED fan that is missing all the lights. Alright, let's continue. BIOS quickly. What do we got? UMA. Okay, cool and quiet. Yeah, we're definitely keeping that on auto. Channel 2 solid state, bootable add-in. USB hard disk drive, second, third. IDE channel disable, so we're disabling the IDE port right there. SATA controller, native IDE. Let's do enhanced if it has it. It's got HCI, so then it will see the drives as HCI versus IDE. On chip SATA port 4.5 type. That's SATA type. $13.94. Wow. Is anything even plugged in there? No, we're disabling that $13.94 port. One less driver. Enabled. Enabled. Power management. Instant off. Looks good. Other than that fan revving up and down, let's, can we save? Save and exit setup. Yes, and let it post, and we're going to, I need BBS F8, F12. Oh, tell me you're not going to do it. Tell me you're not going to do it. No, you have to. You're just not displaying properly, that's all it is, right? I see the blinking, but alright, we're taking it off of the cam link for a moment. I have to. That's what's bad about capturing the video in this way, which I want to switch over to using the hop-hog to send computers out and then send it to possibly the cam link with the pass-through. If it'll work, I don't know if it will. Do you have it going? Let's see what happens. We're gonna reset this quick and try and select the boot device. Okay, so hard disk, let's see. Oh, not hard disk, floppy drive, you dummy, floppy drive. No. It's always fun booting old hardware too. USB. Alright, it sees the USB drive. We're just going to see if it gets to Windows. Doing a lot of nothing. You see it, you're just not booting to it. We need the other one. We got a sticking point somewhere. What is that? Floppy disk, LPT, airport. We don't have a USB 3. We shouldn't need it, honestly. It should just go. Make me get out a PS2 keyboard or mouse. What's BIOS? Delete. Let's go for delete. Right when. Set the boot priority. Done playing. What did I say the BIOS key was? Does anybody remember? Oh, never mind, we made it. Alright. One standard going to change it back to IDE just to see if it makes a bit of difference. And I think this may be a nuisance booting to it. Do we have a USB 2 installer? I don't think it being USB 3 is the problem. I just know older hardware, I've always had a nightmare getting it to boot USB. That was one of the fun things of doing that stuff. Alright, well, we didn't succeed in getting Windows installed. However, we at least got the computer post-tested. The rest of it we can finish up. I think we'll end it there. I'm not going to keep this fight on stream. It's old hardware. It's not near as interesting as new stuff, but we shall get Windows installed on it. I wanted to do like the screen up on what you're watching there, but yeah, I failed. Can't get the USB to boot. About yourself, hard drive. Sorry. Anyhow, power down. Is this the type of board that gets power with just the HDMI plug? Ah, it's not plugged in, so now we have no power. Alright. So I think I'm gonna call it there. Windows is the only thing left to go on this. Clean out this back fan. I think I'm going to replace it as well. Just that revving up and down is not cool. It's not this one. It's literally this one here. The 120 in the back. The power supply fan is fine. This is fine. Everything ramps up and down. We have thermal paste. Everything is a little more appropriate. So we will leave it at that. I think a good place to end it. That was this revisited. We changed a few things. The standoffs, proper screws, thermal compound. Cleaned it out, wires tidied up, tidied away. Yeah, a few upgrades. Hey, it is what it is. Anyhow, thanks for hanging out. We're ending this here. Thanks for clicking the link. Have a good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whatever time it is, wherever you are. Thank you, thank you. And we'll see how this ends up. See you tomorrow.